Dr. Pronovost, would you mind starting by telling us what is the violation of expectation method, how it's used, things like that?
Sure. So violation of expectation is a technique for studying infant cognition. So essentially trying to get at what infants think. But it's typically used with young infants because they don't really have very much language. So we can't really ask them what they think about something. So instead, we have to devise some alternative methods to sort of tease apart what they might be thinking. So it's based on the premise that even as adults, we tend to look longer at things that we find surprising or unexpected. So if you think about a magic show, you've seen maybe some magicians on America's Got Talent, and they do like some crazy magic experiment. We tend to stare at that for a really long time because we're trying to figure out what is going on. It's really unexpected to us. So babies do the same exact thing. If you show them something that is unexpected to them, they're going to look at it a lot longer than something that is normal to them. Mm-hmm. So basically with violation of expectation, we can show infants different events, and then we compare their looking time to the different events to figure out what they find expected about the world and what they find unexpected about the world.
How can you tell? I'm sorry. How can you tell how long they're looking at something? Do you just kind of look at them straight on and look at their eyeballs, or is that all there is to it?
Yes, and there's different formats of how people do this. So some research groups do it all completely live, like a puppet show essentially. And so there's someone watching the infant's face, and then there's other people that are enacting the puppet show, and then they're the ones recording. How I typically do mine is we pre-record the videos, so that way we can control as much as possible about the events. So by recording the videos ahead of time, we can ensure that all the trials are the same length, that everyone makes the same facial expressions and says the same things. And then yes, we have cameras. So there's a camera pointed at the child's face, and that was one of the pictures that I had sent you as sort of the setup. So there's a big TV, and underneath the TV is a camera that's pointed at the child's face, and then we record the child throughout the study, and then afterwards we go back and we code frame by frame where the child's looking, and then we calculate how long they looked at each of the events.
Wow, that's so interesting. So is it hard to use? What are the kind of advantages and disadvantages of using this technique?
So some of the advantages are that you're creating a very controlled environment. So like I mentioned earlier, everyone sees the exact same thing. All the trials are the exact same length. So it's very controlled. So really we're only manipulating the variables that we want to manipulate. So that is one of the strong advantages. It can also be used with very young children. So it's been used with infants as young as 2.5 months. Because as long as they have the ability to look away from the TV or whatever's going on, you can use this method with them. So it can be used with really young children that don't necessarily have language to describe what they're thinking. Some disadvantages are that they're young children typically with these studies, and so you do get a lot of attrition. Children that don't want to participate or parents interfering in the study. So because they're young children, they can't necessarily give their own consent to participate. The parent is the one giving consent, but the children also have to assent to participate. So throughout the study, if they become fussy, they're crying really hard, we have to stop the study because they're no longer assenting to participate. And it's not necessarily anything about our study. We know young children, sometimes they're just tired, they're hungry, they don't want to be sitting on their parents' lap at that exact moment. And as children get older, the toddler age and above, they might actually get off their parents' lap and open the door and leave. And we can't really prevent that. And once that happens, we have to stop the study and we can't use their data anymore because they already saw part of the study, and we can't then restart it because then it's different than the other children in the sample. And parental interference is also one of the big things. So because it's based on looking time, well, we tell the parents when they sit down to close their eyes and look down so that if their child turns around, they don't use the parent as a reference for what they should be doing. And it's based on looking time. So if any of the parents' behavior influences the child's looking time, then that data is now biased. So a lot of times parents, I think they want their child to be a good participant. And so if the child looks away, which is what we want them to do, it's part of the study, the parent says, look, look, and they try to get their child to look back. So that's one of the main, the main issues is when they do those sort of things.
Has a baby ever fallen asleep on you?
Yeah, they've been not fully asleep, but very, very drowsy. And at that point, we pretty much stop.
Just have to, What is the average rate of completion, or the rate of attrition? Would you say a third of babies' data can't be used? I would say
yes. And I think it would also really depend on the age range of the children as well. From my experience, I've used violation of expectation with 18 to like 36-month-old infants. And honestly, the younger babies are easier because they're not as likely to try to like get down. The parents can more so like keep them confined. When they get a bit older and they do have a bit more language and they're a bit more mobile, they want to be independent, I think the attrition rate is a bit higher with that age range because they want to get down, they don't want to sit. Yeah. But I would say on average, probably a third. So you do have to test a lot of children in order to get your required sample size.
I bet an upside is that they're adorable.
Yes. I love working with them. They're so much fun because we have a little like warm-up session beforehand where while the parent fills out paperwork and we get to play with toys and
Aw. Yeah, that's nice.